Welcome to Bus Driver Life. My name is Kiwan. I've been a bus driver for a long time. I've driven school buses and I currently drive transit buses. In this particular video, I'm just gonna tell you about an experience that I had on my bus recently. This clown broke a window on my bus. We'll get to that though. So this is what happened. It was a calm, sunny morning and I was at my layover. Well, actually, okay, I was pulling up to my layover. I allowed the passengers off. It was the last stop. So at this layover, it's the last stop and the first stop. So the passengers that were on my bus, they got off the bus. And there was a lady standing outside and she was walking up to the door. I was like, just give me a few minutes. I'm gonna take a little break and then I'll board. And she was like, oh, no problem. So I'm on my bus and then this guy on a bicycle, he rides up to my bus and he's like, are you okay? Are you all right? Like my door was already closed, but he was screaming it. You okay? You all right? And he starts banging on the front door of the bus. And I'm standing right up there in the front because I was trying to contemplate, am I gonna go use the restroom right now? Do I really have to go? Or am I just gonna stay on the bus? Or what am I gonna do? So he finally stops banging on the door and he goes around to the front of the bus and he puts his bike on a bike rack. We have bike racks on the front of our buses in which a person can put a bicycle there and they can secure it and it's totally their responsibility. They put their bikes on there at their own risk. So he does that. I then decide to grab my work bag and step off the bus because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and use the restroom. So I put my earbuds in before getting off the bus because I was about to make a phone call. So as I get off the bus, he's like, hey, what time are you leaving? What are you doing? Where are you going? So I'm like, this guy is kind of unstable because he's asking me, what time am I leaving? I'm used to that question. But then to say, what are you doing and where are you going? And I'm walking and I have my earbuds in. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just walk to the restroom and I'll deal with that when I come back. This guy starts to follow me. You ain't lying. And he's talking to me and kind of yelling at me and following me. I turned around and said, sir, I'm gonna go use the restroom. I'm gonna ask that you please stop following me. I will be right back over to the bus within a few minutes and I'll answer all your questions. I'm just gonna go use the restroom. I'd appreciate it if you would stop following me. I walk away and I heard him say like, F this guy or something, F being the vulgar, profane word that a lot of people like to use. So as I'm coming back to the bus, leaving the restroom, I'm thinking, okay, this guy's unstable and he could potentially cause problems on the bus, but he hasn't done anything yet with the exception of kind of following me, but he hasn't done anything physical. There's nothing that I can say that he's done to call in and say, hey, this guy shouldn't ride my bus. And then he says like, hey man, I apologize for messing with, what do you say, dipping in your Kool-Aid or messing with your Kool-Aid? I didn't mean it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'm like, why is he using the Kool-Aid reference with me? I haven't had Kool-Aid in a long time, but my favorite flavor was always red. I know red is not the actual flavor, but whatever. Anyway, so I get onto the bus and he gets onto the bus.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
He gave me a little bit of, he was just unstable. He was on 10, meaning like he was just, there was so much energy. But my train of thought was, hey, just relax and be calm. This guy's gonna ride the bus for a little bit and eventually he's gonna get off the bus and I'll be done with him. So I'm just, you know, it is what it is. But then he went and had a seat and the seat he sat in was right close to the rear door. So he's sitting in that seat and I'm sitting in the driver's seat. So I began to drive the bus. But as bus drivers, we have like a sixth sense where, did I say it right? Sixth.
Stop it.
Where we can kind of look at people and tell that they might be a problem, but you can't deny a person a ride because they might be a problem. That's not, it has to actually be a problem. So I'm driving. And as I'm driving, you know, he's pretty calm. He blurts things out from time to time, but it's nothing that I can't deal with. I'm like, you know. So then he yells out really loud, hey driver! Right when, I was actually at a bus stop and I'm letting people on the bus and he yells, hey driver, like super loud. And they were asking me questions and he proceeded to ask me a question from way back there, sitting close to the rear door. And he starts getting irritated because I wasn't answering him, but I had these two senior citizen ladies who were, you know, asking me questions as well. And one of them had a mobility device, so I had to lower the bus and let the wheelchair ramp out so that, you know, the person with the mobility device can get onto the bus. So I'm like dealing with them up in the front and he's way in the back yelling stuff. So once they got on, he comes all the way up to the front to ask me this question about a particular street that I stop at. And I said, yes, I stopped there. And he's like, that's where I'm getting off. And then he went and sat back down. And I'm thinking like, well, you need to pull the stop request. But I'm like, hey, whatever, I'll stop there because that's probably where where he's getting off at, and yes, it's not too far from where we're at. This is gonna be awesome. So we get to that particular street, and guess what? Someone rung the stop request. It wasn't him though, and that's fine because another person wanted to get off. So I get to the stop, come to a complete stop, the doors are open, and the one person got off the bus, not the guy that I'm talking about, but another guy. He had like a bag of bread. So this other guy got off the bus, and I'm sitting there. And the guy with the bike that's been kind of disruptive a little bit, he's just sitting in his seat. He didn't get up, even though he informed me in a very outlandish, over-the-top way that this was the street that he wanted to exit the bus at. So I was there for like another 30, 40 seconds, almost a minute, with the doors open. And this guy who said he wanted to stop, he blurted it out earlier, he's just sitting in his seat, actually very calm and not saying anything. So I'm like, all right, I guess he's not getting off here. And I was kind of like, oh man, I want to get this guy off the bus, but you know, it is what it is. Can't kick him off. He hasn't done anything disruptive per se that would justify kicking him off of the bus or having someone come to remove him from the bus. So I close my doors and I proceed on down the road. As soon as I start to proceed and take off, he says, "What's wrong with you? You're not gonna let me get off? You're not gonna let me off the bus? Huh? You're not gonna let me off the bus?" And I'm driving. I didn't say anything to him. In my mind, I'm like, we were literally sitting there for probably almost a minute and the doors were open and you could have gotten off the bus and you're just sitting there. So what do you mean I'm not letting you off the bus? Keep in mind, I'm not saying this out loud. I'm thinking this as I'm driving. So he pulls the stop request again. I'm like, cool, he's gonna get off at this next stop. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why he didn't get off at the stop that he said he wanted, but here we go. So I pull up to the next stop in which he did request. Complete stop, I open the doors and I'm sitting there waiting. I'm looking up in my mirror, looking up in the driver mirror. I can see everybody behind me. He's just sitting in his seat, calm, just like this. Sitting there completely quiet. The doors are wide open. We're stopped. We're waiting on him. There's like 3 other people on the bus beside this guy. And even they were kind of turning around looking at him like, is he gonna get off the bus?
You ain't lying.
Just like me, I'm wondering like, is he gonna get off the bus? I sat there, y'all, for like 30, 40 seconds. And that's a long time to sit and wait. He wasn't getting up preparing to get off the bus. You know, it's different. Some people take a long time to get off the bus. They just don't have their stuff together and they're grabbing bags, putting jackets on. He wasn't doing that. He was just sitting still, completely still in his seat, not speaking, nothing, just sitting there. I want you guys to understand that this is not a situation where I pulled up to the stop and somebody was trying to get off and then I just pulled off. That did not happen. I gave this guy ample time. And I'm like, okay, is this guy gonna be trolling me for the rest of the trip? Because some people do that sometimes. They'll pull the stop request cord or press the button, whatever your bus has that triggers the stop request. They'll just do that every stop, every other stop, and then not get off just to give the bus drivers a hard time and to slow everybody up on the bus because that'll make us run late. So this guy's just sitting there. So I'm like, all right, I guess he's not getting off here. I've sat here for a long time. I close the door, I take off. As soon as I take off, he jumps up. "What the F are you doing? You effing," he called me the N-word, racial slurs. And then as I'm driving, he starts kicking the rear doors and trying to push himself out of the rear door while the bus is moving, kicking them. And then he eventually kicked the window of the rear door and cracked the window. I, of course, pulled over and he started kicking the door. And I secured the bus, set the parking brake, and I opened up the doors. And the rear door finally opened after experiencing all the abuse that it did from this guy, from this clown. And then I stood up, and I wasn't standing up like to, you know, for any confrontation with him. I stood up because I'm like looking at the rear door, you know, I stood up out of my seat and turned around. I'm looking at the rear door like, did this guy really break the glass? And yes, he did.
Told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
He's all like, come back here, I'll F you up, mother effer. Like so many F bombs were dropped. F you. He was like, don't you ever in your effing life not let me off the bus. When I say I'm getting off the bus, you effing open those doors. You tried to pass up my stop. You effing racial slur. Call me racial slur again. And which, you know, it is what it is, whatever. And then he gets off the bus, finally through the rear door. I close all the doors so that he can't jump back on the bus. And then of course I had to call it in and report it. That's what happened to me. That's my story time pretty much. Let me know what you all think about that story time. To my fellow bus operators out there, have you all had any situations like that occur? And passengers, people that ride the bus or the trains, you know, public transit, period. Have you seen anything like that? I'm pretty sure there's a possibility you have. if you use public transportation all the time. So anyway, thank you so much for watching and listening to my story time. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hit the thumbs up. And thank you for watching Bus Driver Life.